Several years ago, back around 2015, Audi released the R8 e-tron. It was a pure electric version of the R8 supercar, but they never ended up selling many of them. Supposedly fewer than 100 were made and sold. A big part of that was probably the fact that it cost over $1 million. Fast forward half a decade later now, e-tron has become its own sub-brand, and we're looking at this here today, the 2020 Audi e-tron Sportback. We're at Fletcher Jones Audi in Chicago, Illinois, looking at this Sportback. What does Sportback mean? Well, you had the regular e-tron SUV, and this is the Sportback version. It's like A7 versus A6, Audi A5 versus A4. You're sacrificing a little practicality and space for a much more sporty and aggressive roofline and angles down there. The overall car looks a little more sporty. Specifically for the e-tron, though, we have a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack that in peak output will make 402 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. I say peak output because you got to put it into sport mode. It boosts the output. Regularly, it makes 355 horsepower and 414 pound-feet of torque. This has quattro all-wheel drive. You have a motor on each axle there, but it is rear biased. It can tow up to 4,000 pounds. 0 to 60 is claimed in 5.5 seconds. And the big question for any EV is, what is the range? This one is EPA rated at 218 miles of range. So that's a bit less than the top tier long range Tesla Model Y, which is over 300, but it is comparable to an all-wheel drive Mustang Mach-E from Ford at right around that 200 to 220 miles of pure electric range. In terms of exterior styling, again, we already mentioned how the Sportback has a swoopier roofline there, but around front, around back, it's relatively conservative. It's not over the top trying to make it look like a spaceship. You have a lot of signature Audi styling cues. The headlights, the daytime running light shape, the grille up front. It doesn't require the same kind of airflow as an internal combustion engine, but that styling cue is still there to make this look very similar to any Q5 or Q3 or something like that in the lineup. Couple differences you will note: little e-tron badges. Obviously there's a charging port on the side with more e-tron badging there. We've got these 20-inch turbine wheels. You can upgrade them. Available black optics package. Around back, that big light bar that a lot of the Audi models are going to. Obviously no exhaust tips, but overall when you look at something like an e-tron, and especially this Sportback, you just see a sporty, cool looking Audi crossover, not necessarily some sort of spaceship that screams, "I am an EV." With that, let's hop in the e-tron Sportback. We'll take it for a drive, talk about the interior, what is it like to drive, and also the value. Inside the e-tron Sportback now on the road, and the first thing you'll notice as soon as you get into this vehicle is how normal it feels. It doesn't feel like a spaceship in here. It's not like they tried really hard to make it unconventional. It feels like a normal, newer Audi. If you've been in a new A7 or an A6 or a Q8, it's all the similar, familiar layout. We have our virtual cockpit display screen up front, which is reconfigurable. It looks really nice. The dual touchscreen setup, the 10.1 up front, and then the 8.8-inch below that controls things like your climate settings. The most different, unconventional thing would be this transmission selector thing, where you have this rotary kind of lever that you push forward and back for reverse and drive, a little button on the side for park. This is very different. It's cool. I think it's cool. It's a little more exciting than a rotary dial or just buttons to push. It's different, and it's not difficult to figure out. Some vehicles, they try to push it too far. It ends up being just, you don't know whether you're in park, reverse, neutral, or drive. You're like, that's not safe. I don't mind it at all. And then I'm going to try my best to avoid all the common EV types of things of like, it's so quiet and the power delivery is so immediate, because that's intrinsic of the behavior of an electric vehicle. That's what they do. But that being said, I did see a test of the interior noise of the e-tron Sportback, and it was comparable to a Rolls-Royce Cullinan. So that's actually really quiet, because you still have road noise, tire noise, wind noise when you don't have explosions and other moving parts in your engine masking that. Things like wind noise and tire noise can become very apparent. Weather is really crappy outside today, unfortunately, so I won't be doing anything like extreme to test out how this thing will handle on a curvy back road, unfortunately. But this is a real-life scenario of the middle of winter in Chicago, Illinois. What is it like to drive the e-tron Sportback? A couple other things I'm noticing inside the Sportback here. I feel like the seating position is actually pretty low. I like it. Audi pitches this as a SUV crossover type of vehicle, but like next to something like there's a Chevy Equinox and a Jeep Grand Cherokee in front of me, I feel like I'm sitting quite a bit lower, and I like it. It feels sportier. It's more comfortable for me with this nice panoramic glass roof up top. And then what else do we have? Bang & Olufsen sound system here. We've got all the creature comforts you would want, heated and cooled seats. The newer tier ones, you can get massage seats too, I think, on a Prestige, but this is a Premium Plus. So it serves as a nice quality material. We got some wood, some leather, some stitching. Oof. Silent acceleration, very smooth. Now, weight is always the enemy for EVs, and that's certainly the case for the e-tron Sportback. Curb weight is something like 5,700 pounds, which is a lot, especially when you think about a Q5 with the 2-liter. I think the curb weight is right around 4,000 pounds, so this is a lot heavier. But compared to the 2-liter, the performance, this is quicker 0 to 60. This will do 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds, whereas I believe the 2-liter is rated at 5.7 for the Q5. So this has a lot more horsepower and torque, but because of that increased weight, it's only a little bit faster. There is supposed to be a S model of the e-tron SUV and Sportback coming that will add a third electric motor and make something like 700 pound-feet of torque and almost 500 horsepower, and that is supposed to drop the 0 to 60 down to 4.5 seconds, so a bit quicker. We have standard air suspension, so as with all the other Audi air suspensions, adjustable ride height, adjustable damping. When you go through Drive Select, it does change it. I'm in Comfort now, and I will actually drop it to Dynamic, which not only lowers the ride height, firms things up, makes it a little bit sportier, but also unlocks the full boost power. I mentioned at the very beginning, that's how you get the full 402 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque in that 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. Now, the other thing with EVs that I've always found interesting is they're so much more simple. You don't have as many moving parts in the powertrain and the transmission. This is a single speed, and you just kind of go. You put your foot down and you get to your speed. There is no waiting for a boost to build or anything like that. You just move. But range. We do need to talk about range. This is fully charged. It's showing just under 100% and indicating 162 miles. That's not brilliant. Again, it's 17 degrees Fahrenheit outside, cold, snowy. I don't know how this has been driven. Maybe just a lot of city driving and things like that, or that's not brilliant, especially when you look at some of the other EVs. That being said, I feel like rating range on EVs has been such an amorphous, difficult thing. A lot of times, nobody's gotten anywhere close to EPA rating, or they've exceeded the EPA rating. It's just like you got to take it all with a grain of salt, and so many things change. There's so many factors that affect it. It's definitely something to keep in mind, but Audi says that for charging on regular regular AC charging, like the slow version, 0 to 100% will take 9 hours. So if you just like plug it in, that's quite a bit of time. But if you leave it overnight, you'll be fine. On the fast charging AC, it says 0 to 80% in 30 minutes, which is good because it does slow down as you get more and more closer to full charge. But if you can get 80% of your range in 30 minutes, that's pretty good. Access to all the charge networks. I think it's Electrify America is what you would get. Traffic is opening up. Get to see what this thing can do. It is really isolated. The regen braking, I haven't played with the settings. I don't know if you can change it, but it's not as aggressive as some of the other cars. Even holding the left paddle, I think there's paddle shifters on there. It says minus and plus, which obviously there's no like minus and plus of gears, but I think it might do the regen braking. On the Chevy Bolt I had for a week, you could do one pedal driving without a problem. You either lift off, hold the paddle, or you put it into the low mode and it would really aggressively slow you down, and you pretty much didn't have to touch the brake pedal at all. I would drive for half an hour all the way to work and not touch the brake pedal. This feels a little more conventional, like a gas internal combustion car, where I'm driving with both pedals, which I guess is normal for most people. It's just kind of interesting that some EVs you can change the regen braking aggressiveness. Usually when I go through this little overpass, I roll the window down and try to make some noise. With this, it's not really a thing. Oh, we'll hop on Lakeshore Drive, get up to some speed. Let's see what this thing handles, how it does. I'm in dynamic mode now, and I mean, it's honestly just drives so normal. Not as tall. Like, this feels like it's lower than a Q5. Part of it might be low center of gravity. You got a big, heavy battery pack anchoring it down. But, I mean, it feels more, honestly, to me, like an A7 than a Q5, or definitely like a Q7. Ooh, it's got some pull. Huh. Let's see. Let me get an open lane. Go to the left. All right. Interesting. Very interesting. That's definitely pretty quick. Now, obviously, like the launch control in the top tier Model S, Model X Ludicrous, like that, you can't compete with that. Those are way more expensive, way more power. But honestly, those made me feel nauseous. We did launch control a couple times, and like you can't breathe, like, and you're like, oh, this is impractical. And then heat soak is an issue with those. Like the degradation of 0 to 60 times is horrendous, I think, across those when you do it a bunch of times. Again, this is a regular e-tron Sportback. This is the mainstream vehicle for you to daily drive, commute around. So what is it like there? Well, even in dynamic mode, the air suspension is actually handling these bumps pretty well. I'm happy this is on the 20-inch wheels with a little more sidewall on the tires, but if I put it back into, I don't need off-road mode or all-road, I just want comfort mode. Let's see, air suspension is going to raise back up. It is absolutely, without a doubt, comfortable. Heated and cooled seats. I do wish this had massage seats. That would be nice. You can option up to a Prestige. For the 2021 model year, they've added a more entry-level premium to make it a little more affordable. And with that, let's talk about the price. This e-tron Sportback is not cheap. They start at something like the Premium Plus is just under $70,000, $69,100 if I recall correctly. As option, we're right at $80,000. That being said, you will still qualify for a $7,500 federal tax credit for this vehicle, so that does help offset the cost a bit, and there is 1,000 kilowatt hours of complimentary charging via the Electrify America over, I believe, the first 4 years of ownership. That being said, are you paying a bit to be an early adopter into the Audi EV lineup? Yes, I absolutely believe so. For this price, 80 grand, ignoring the federal tax credit, you can get yourself into a Q8, which is a larger, more premium, higher level up in the lineup hierarchy vehicle. But it's a completely different experience. This is completely silent, so smooth, so quiet, and I think I like that it feels normal. It doesn't, when you're driving, it's not like reminding you every single second that you are in this high-tech, cutting-edge, brand new, latest generation EV. It's just like, hey, this is a new propulsion, new powertrain for our vehicle. It's presented to you in a familiar shape. It looks sporty and cool, and it's got some nice modern touches, but it still resembles a normal brand new Audi. The interior has all the creature comforts and stuff. They haven't taken it all away and just be like, here's one button you push and that's all you get to do to make your car move places. It's like a new A7 on the inside, honestly. This is interesting, very interesting. So I'm playing around with these paddles to see what they really do. If I hold the minus button, I feel it slowing down, and as soon as I press the plus, it seems to cancel and goes back to a normal coasting slowdown. If I just, whoa. It does have enough power like you saw that. It pushed my head back. That wasn't me doing it on purpose to exaggerate. I was just cruising at regular speed and just decided to floor the go pedal, the move pedal, the accelerator. Can't call it a gas pedal anymore. Yeah, and I'm in comfort. If I go back in the dynamic, that will definitely give it the full 490 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, that's strong passing power. Honestly, that's almost more usable and more useful than 0 to 60 times. How often are you doing launch? Actually, depending on who you are, like me, I do launch control off the line too often, so 0 to 60 times are relevant. But if you're highway passing, that's what you need. Yeah, goodbye, Jeep. Welcome to the future. Some other thoughts that always go through my mind as I'm driving this. So this vehicle is 1,700 pounds heavier than just a Q5. So we're taking another more conventional four-door SUV in this size in the Audi lineup. And because the regen braking isn't that aggressive, I wonder if you'd go through brake pads at a much higher rate, because weight, you can't get away from weight. 5,700 pounds is heavy. That's very, very heavy. I think that's heavier than a Q7. It's a big vehicle. But the comfort, the isolation, I'm really impressed. Even in dynamic mode, this air suspension is doing a good job on the horrendous Midwest roads. It's dumping snow right now, crappy, wet, and cold outside. It's miserable, in short. I'm fine inside this I keep saying Q something, because that's what I think about when it's an Audi SUV. This e-tron Sportback. I do think Audi is going to have a little bit of a branding dilemma on their hands. They launched e-tron as the brand, but the first SUV was just the Audi e-tron. Then they added a Sportback version of the SUV, and now there's an e-tron GT with an RS version of that e-tron GT. And they're going to make an Audi Sportback S e-tron S version, like an S line or an Audi S, I don't know. So e-tron is both the brand and the model, and there's different designations going around it. Either way, this is I guess this is Audi starting to move into the full EV space. We'll see how it goes as things evolve. I definitely am excited to try out an RS e-tron GT because the power numbers of that is crazy. But again, that still has the issue of range. The range isn't brilliant. Not brilliant, but the competitors are also similar. A Ford Mustang Mach-E with all-wheel drive is right at 210 miles, I believe. And all-wheel drive does make a big difference. Some of those extended range, the longest numbers you hear people quote, are for rear-wheel drive versions, so lower power output rear-wheel drive. So all-wheel drive and more output, make it faster, definitely has a factor on your range. It's snowing harder now. That being said, this is a quick time with the e-tron Sportback. I think it looks really cool. I like the Sportback shape. Again, I decided to buy myself an RS7. I do like that four-door kind of swoopy, sporty roofline type of vehicle. The powertrain is interesting. The range I wish was higher, but it's usable, especially with some of these increasing charging infrastructures. This is going to be our future reality very soon. Am I excited about it? Somewhat. It depends. I think as a daily driver, I would be perfectly fine with an electric vehicle. But for my sports cars, I'm going to be clinging to those internal combustion. This is going to make me go out and buy like an R8 V10 and rebel against the incoming death of the internal combustion engine. Make sure you guys also check out the interior and details video. I get more in depth showing you guys some of the screens, and check out the second row space and some other things like how to open the charging ports and things like that. Otherwise, again, thanks to Fletcher Jones Audi for making this video possible. It was actually funny. The first car I was filming sold as I was filming it. So obviously the new owners took that car and I got this one to drive. So it's the exact same spec and color. So continuity, I think, is okay. But literally a car sold as I was in the middle of filming my B-roll for this review. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Appreciate all the support as always. Thanks for watching.